Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today, your pushback channel. Now, thank you for joining us live stream. In this chat, I'd like to talk about how checklists have replaced expertise and experience and knowledge and capability in the workplace or even in the education system generally. What's happened, or what used to be the case, was when you'd say you were starting out, or you were new to a company, or you were fresh out of college or something like that, you'd be put on the job with someone who had experience and knowledge of doing the job. They may have had years experience, maybe many years experience, and you would work with them and they would show you the ropes, and it'd be part of your induction and like a traineeship almost, I guess. And that was how you were sort of brought into the business, and how you were familiarised with the job and the requirements of the job. So you were shown what to do by someone who'd sort of made the mistakes previously, so you didn't have to repeat the mistakes that the previous incumbent would have made or could have made, or any other beginner would have made. So this was I thought, pretty reasonable and sensible way of going about it. I couldn't think of a better way, but nonetheless, we've moved to a situation now where the knowledge, the experience, the credentials, that sort of thing, it's not relevant anymore, nor do you need to be supported by somebody or inducted by someone who has that expertise. Instead, every job's been brought down. It's almost like it's a process of semi-automation, I suppose, brought down to a checklist. You go through the checklist and you do what's on the checklist, and that's it. Now, the checklist, by definition, has to be common and general. It has to bring everyone onto the same page. Now, if there are certain points where where the reality deviates from the script, the checklist, then you've got to go to a supervisor. The chances are the supervisor won't have much more expertise than the person at the bottom rung does. So you may have to go several levels up the chain before you get to someone who's got the expertise to actually make a decision based on the variable factors that have caused the query to move up the management chain. So the checklist is functional to a point, and you can see this when say jobs are outsourced to India or somewhere like that. The argument is, well, these people don't need to know anything. All they need is to follow the checklist, and then if anything out of that deviates from that, they can just escalate it up the chain and everything's fine. So they see it as a way of reducing cost and getting a common delivery of service or support or whatever the case may be. So the checklist has replaced experience, and it's a very simple way of going about it. I don't believe it works very well, but it's very attractive to, I think, most bigger organisations. It just means they can access the cheapest labour and throw them a checklist and they go, off you go, and they don't have to spend really any time training, or there's no orientation time or anything like that. They don't have to pay someone to sit next to them who knows what they're doing. They can just take some raw flunky off the street, give them the checklist, and that's it. Now, there's of course a very substantial drop in service and quality of service, the time it takes to deliver the service, the chain of management up the line who have to solve more complicated problems is constantly blocked. It's gridlock as you move up the line there, which means that the managers lower down just can't be bothered. They'd rather just hang up on the phone call. It's just too hard to get a senior experienced person to give instructions or to untangle the can of worms, which it often is by the time it's moved up the chain. But I noticed this in interviews where somebody, on paper at least, has got the credentials. They did the same job in their previous employer. They've got their degree in such and such, which theoretically at least qualifies them or gives them, you would think, a grounding or a knowledge in this. But once you start to pick it apart, you've got the candidate in front of you, and there's a committee there, and I'm sitting on the committee, and I might ask a question, well, how would you go about doing this? And they just stare back at you and go, well, I don't know. What's on the checklist? I'm only going to follow the checklist. I'm only going to do what's on the checklist. So, if you want someone to actually think through the problem and solve it, then that's someone at a higher pay grade. It's not me. And you go, well, hold on, you sure? But you're the frontline person, or you're supervising the frontline people. You need to at least have some understanding. And particularly the affirmative action hires, and they'll just look at you. No, why would I do that? Hey, I'm going to have a checklist, and there's an internal online support page that's going to tell me what to do, and then I can Google stuff on the internet. I don't need to know anything. I just need the checklist, and that's it. And they seem to struggle with the idea that they should or even need to know, or that it's even helpful to know what they're doing. Instead, they see everything now as a checklist, and it's a way of automating, outside of robotics, it's a way of automating service jobs in effect. And I don't think it's working out very well. But what it means is people can be seemingly superbly well qualified on paper. They've got all the credentials, all the degrees and all the other things, and they still don't know squat about the job they're doing, because all they're ever required to do is follow a checklist. They've graduated through senior high school and graduated through college just through affirmative action, maybe it's gender or race quotas. Then they've got the job through gender or race quotas. So they've got all these sorts of things, and really they don't know Monday from Tuesday. They've just been waved through, and all they've ever done is tick boxes on a checklist. And increasingly, that's the calibre and standard of employee we're seeing, not simply in the public service where you'd expect to see a bit more of that, but across almost all the large multinational corporations. You'd see a difference in a smaller business maybe, where they really have to get out and compete in the marketplace and be the best and offer the best service and so on. And there they can't really afford the checklist. In a smaller business, there are just too many variables that come at them, and they just can't checklist it all. So this is something but this is changing the whole standard of worker capacity and ability across the Western world. And it's particularly bad in the English-speaking countries now. But that's how things are going. That it's all checklist-based, and I think we're losing a vast amount of real expertise and real knowledge, and that's going to cost us dearly, and is costing us dearly as we transition away from being an autonomous, whites-only economy into being some third world peasant free-for-all. You've been with Tassless today, a Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.